All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you for tuning in for another Authors Impact Hub podcast. Listen, I am your host, Juanita Wilson, founder of the Authors Impact Hub. So we've been going really strong with our author Q&As with authors all across the U.S. I'm excited that we're even being heard globally, right? We're being heard in Mexico, Russia, the Philippines, the UK. So I'm excited about that. So tonight we have a special guest on with us. We get to learn a little bit more about her background and her journey. I always let the authors do their own introduction, right? I don't think anybody
Okay.
can tell about themselves more than we can. So we have Melissa Baptiste on. Please correct me if I'm saying your name incorrectly.
It's okay. Jean-Baptiste, it's all right.
Yeah.
I go by so many things. It's really okay.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you on with us. If you can share a little bit about who you are and your background.
Yeah, so my name is Melissa Jean-Baptiste, aka Millennial in Debt, aka the Beyonce of personal finance. And so I am a first generation Haitian American, and my background is in education. So I was a high school English teacher in New York City for 11 years, so a long, long, long time. And I pivoted into finance, into marketing and finance, fintech. But before I did that, I really started getting into talking about money from talk about money from a really accessible point of view. So I started Millennial in Debt in 2017 as a web series where I pretty much documented myself and my friends and family's journey with money, paying off student loans, buying our first home, things like that. And really uncovering the conversations that made people uncomfortable or embarrassed and bringing them to not only accessibility, but also in a funny, humorous way, right? Where it's just like we're all going through the same thing. And so from that web series, created the Instagram, the website, all of those other assets that were a part of the Millennial in Debt atmosphere to really give people a place to, come and ask questions, share their stories, and learn about money and build generational wealth at that same time. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
And that is also what led to my book. So this is why I'm broke, which is all encompassing really financial literacy, personal finance book to help guide you from point A through point Z, really learning how to budget, how to save, how to invest, how to estate plan, how to prepare for taxes, all the things that we wish we learned in high school, all the things we're navigating right now. But really just making it like a step-by-step guidebook.
Yes, awesome. So you said a couple things. Listen, first thing I have to give a shout out to my girl Beyonce. I'm a huge Beyonce fan.
Me
So
too. Me too.
yes, yes. Listen, shameless plug. I just had to say that. So
Yeah, same. Love her.
so you went from teaching, right? So you went from teaching English to
Yeah.
now having your own platform where you're helping millions. I know when I was in school, learning about finance is not something that we learned about, and I've been out of school for 20 something years now, not to like try to tell my age, but it's been a long time.
Girl, you look 25. You are what?
I appreciate that. I'll take it. Thank you.
You are aging beautifully. That's awesome.
I appreciate that. But yeah, it's been a long time. So some of the things that I learned and still learning, right? Full transparency, I didn't learn in school. My parents didn't have all the tools that they needed, right, to be able to teach my siblings. So what made you take that switch to say, I'm not going to teach anymore, but this is what my purpose, basically?
Yeah, so I always say that I'm not in the classroom teacher anymore, but I'm still teaching, so still walking in that purpose, walking in, still using my degree that I paid so much money for. But honestly, I loved teaching. I loved really just kind of helping students go from point A to point Z. And then I had seniors, and there's like in New York City, there's this point where they're done with all their state tests, but they're not done yet. They still have to come in and sit in class. And I asked them straight up, I'm like, well, what do you want to learn about? Like, what do y'all want to do in these last 4 weeks? Because I know y'all don't want to read like Romeo and Juliet, like we're not doing that. And almost all of them said, we want to learn about money. We are going off to college in a few months, we have part-time jobs and we have no idea what we're doing. And I'm like, same. And so I really like dug in and I was starting to work on the web series. And I was just like, I really want to teach these students something useful outside of course, critical thinking. I want to teach them something that's super tangible that they can use in different areas of their life. And so I did that for the last 4 years in the classroom, and it really grew into this big thing, and they loved doing it. And I really wanted to I adapt that particular like couple of weeks with them into something a lot larger. And so I always say whenever people ask me like, well, what do you want to do with this platform? Like eventually two things. I want to be a part of the political conversation and making financial literacy mandatory in schools because I
Yes.
still think it's so important. And I want to start creating scholarships for children in going to college and doing all of these different things because it's just like they need the money. They need to understand how to use the money. And so I really want that to be like the legacy of my platform. So that's what really kind of helped me transition out. So I was growing millennial in debt. I really loved marketing. I really loved teaching. I feel like I melted those worlds together really well, and that landed me in fintech, in the marketing sector. So like it was kind of perfect because I love marketing and I'm talking about money and finance all the time. And so that's kind of where I landed after I left the classroom and still being able to, of course, run Millennial in Debt. At some point, I was full time running Millennial in Debt, and I am back now in marketing again in fintech. So it's just really important that I stick to like what I love to do and what I love to talk about. And teaching is always going to be a part of that no matter what.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. So I know you mentioned, so you paid off your student debt.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like for you? Because I know a lot of us are still waiting on like that student loan discharge to come through.
I
Oh, no.
know. Yeah, so I paid off my final student loan in December of 2018. And it was amazing. And I was only out of debt for 30 days. And I know people are like, girl, what happened? But for those 30 days, it was amazing. It really was just like a weight lifted off my chest. It took me 5 years of intentional focus and prioritizing paying down that debt to really get from, owing that $100,000. And let me tell everyone listening, I did not borrow $100,000. That's the tea there is
Yeah.
I actually borrowed $50,000. And by the time I ended up paying it off in 2018, I had paid off $102,000. And it was just like, it's done. I reached the finish line. But then I got a mortgage the next month. So I am still a millennial in debt. So I'm still here. But it's a different feeling for sure.
Right. Absolutely. So are there any tips that you can give to someone who, and I don't want to use this reference too much, but I know a lot of us, like I said, are waiting on the discharge, but what if it doesn't
Yeah.
come, right? So what tips can you maybe give us to start chopping away at the student debt?
Yeah. So the first thing I did after crying, because I was just like, geez, like this is just feels
Yeah.
never ending. I had to create a plan. And that plan really started off with knowing my numbers. And that is probably going to be one of the most uncomfortable moments where you sit down with yourself and you look at, okay, I'm kind of in this situation, right? Not mess. A lot of people are like this mess. I'm in this situation. It's not forever, but this is the debt that I have. This is my income. These are my expenses. Now what do I do next? And I'll never forget sitting down and calculating my net worth, which I highly suggest as your first step.
Okay.
I added up all of my assets. I added up, which wasn't much, and I added up all of my liabilities, and I had a negative net worth. And that really, mentally and emotionally, that really does something to you. Where you're just like, I'm not even worth $1, And it's just like wow, like what do I do now? But if I did not sit down and look at those numbers and calculate that net worth, I would have never one given myself the motivation to push to pay off this debt, or
Right.
two, I wouldn't know how to plan. I wouldn't know what to do because I wouldn't know where I was starting from. So realizing that I was at a negative $50,000 net worth, I was like, okay, well, what's step two? Like, what do we do after we, have cried and felt sorry? I started realizing that I had to side hustle, and I tried every side hustle under the sun. And I'm here to tell you, if you are choosing a side hustle, focus on two things. One, focus on your skill set and focus on the time that you have. Because in trying to do every single side hustle, first of all, not all of them were financially worth it. They were taking up my time. I was trying to be a teacher. I was trying to be a friend. I was trying to be a daughter, a sister, a cousin. Like I was trying to still live a life that was worth living, but I was doing 25 different side hustles and barely bringing home like 100, 200, $300 a month. So I finally found like my schools are like, girl, you're a teacher. You can sell your lesson plans and unit plans. And that was my sweet spot. And so I was like, well, I'm already creating this. I'm already doing this for work. It's already taking up a chunk of my time. I might as well get paid for it in a different way. So I started selling my
Right.
lesson plans and unit plans on Teachers Pay Teachers. And I started bringing in about $10,000 in additional income a year. And I used that income and threw it right at the debt. So I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm staying focused. Like, this is nice, this extra income, but I'm not. It's easy to get wrapped up in a month to month. Like, oh, I got this extra 300. I got this extra 800. But it was like, no, I'm going to put this in this high yield savings account. And every December for 5 years, I would take whatever I had made from Teachers Pay Teachers and I would throw it at one of the principal loans. And so by 2018, I was like, okay, the final loan is left. And that was like, that's how I got to it. So it really was because I saw the number and I needed to figure out a plan. And so that was it. I could not have done it without earning the extra income. It just would not have happened.
Yes. I love the transparency and the honesty in it, right? Because a lot of times it's just like, okay, well, stop drinking Starbucks.
No, it's not, and we all fall into that because
Yeah.
early on, I was very focused on deprivation. I was like, "Okay, well, I am going to pay off this debt. I'm not gonna get my nails done. I'm not gonna go to brunch. I'm not gonna do any of that." And after about 2 years, so after the second time where I paid off the second loan, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna start putting money aside to do things that I enjoy while still putting money into that sinking fund to pay off that loan." Because it was depressing. I wasn't enjoying, like, life was passing by. Yes, I was paying off this
Right.
debt, but all these other amazing things were happening around me, and I just was choosing not to participate because I was punishing myself. I was embarrassed. I was like, "You don't deserve to go to brunch. You don't deserve to go on vacation." And let me tell you, when I paid off that student loan, I was like, "I'm going to London." Like that, I have worked hard. I have a travel fund. I'm going to London. So it's really important for anyone listening who wants to pay off student loans or pay off any major debt. Set those milestones for yourself where you can reward yourself. It doesn't have to be a trip to London, but it could be a nice dinner for yourself. It could be a really nice full French manicure set, whatever it is that you like to do. Set that milestone like, okay, when I pay off $5,000 of this debt, I'm going to take a day trip. When I pay $10,000, I'm going to take a weekend, whatever it is. But you have to reward yourself for working hard because we work really hard to
Right.
just be like, okay, this money's paying these bills, this money's paying this debt, and I'm just going to sit at home
And
sad.
that's
Like,
it.
no, no, we're not doing that. No,
Yeah,
no.
absolutely. I love that. And small wins move you forward. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes like, celebrating those wins, it motivates you to keep going. So that's great. So you are also an author, right,
Yeah.
listeners? If you've been listening so far, so she is a teacher, she is in fintech, right? So you do a lot of things, but you've also written a book as well. So can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the name of the book is called So This Is Why I'm Broke. And I always talk about the title and the book cover because they were so important to me. I had to fight for both, and I'm so happy that both were able to come through. And so when I was growing up, every single Saturday, my mother would drag myself and my two brothers off to the laundromat, and we would spend pretty much the whole day there doing like laundry for the family for the week. We have a really big family. And so I grew up thinking if you had a washer dryer in your house, you were rich. Like you were top of the top, super wealthy because you could just pop in like any laundry you want and you never have to give
Right.
up your Saturday doing laundry. And so I always joke about it that laundry is so like mentally not traumatic, but I hate doing laundry so much as an adult because it's just like it was such a time suck. It just removes like all the enjoyment. And so the cover of the book, I'm in a laundromat. I am in the little cart on the laundry and reading like a newspaper, basically like the Wall Street Journal on how to get wealthy. Because again, my mind is like, if you're at a laundromat, you don't have money. Like that, I was young, dumb. That's literally not true. But that was just so important in how I framed wealth as a child that I
Right.
really wanted to incorporate that into the book. And so the title, So This Is Why I'm Broke, essentially is all the things that I thought about wealth, all the things that I thought about money, all the misconceptions, all the myths that I thought like kept me trapped in being broke. When the truth and the reality is, I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know how to navigate,
Yeah.
$10, let alone $10,000. I didn't know what taxes were. I remember my work mom, my first year of teaching, she had to sit me down to get me to open a 403B. She was just like, listen, if you want to be rich when you retire, you need to open this account. I was like, girl, I'm never going to be rich like that. That's not even something I'm thinking about. She's like, no, listen to me. She's like, you need to open up this account. So 403B for anyone listening is the equivalent to a 401k, but it's a 403B because I worked for the city. So I was a teacher. 401k is if you're working for like a private company. And so I opened that account in 2011. And by 2021, that money had grown so much that I achieved Coast Fire. So now, even if I never invest ever again, by the time I reach retirement, I will
Mhm.
have $1.7 million. So I will have my retirement number. And that was literally from her, like, bullying me, gently bullying me into opening the account, where she was like, just start with 3%. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I don't have no money. I still live at home with my parents. I'm trying to move. I'm trying to do this. I don't want to give up money to go to this random account. And so she's like, just start with 3%. And at that time, teachers don't make a lot of money. I was putting in $121 a check. So over the entirety of the year, it was less than $3,000 going into this account, and to see how much
Right.
that grew in 10 years. And I'm like, I'm so happy I listened to her. And she was
Yeah.
like, every time you get a raise, increase that percentage. So anyone listening, anytime you get a raise, increase the percentage. And so I share those stories and I talk about those things in the book because I want anyone that picks it up to not only be able to relate, but to be like, oh, so she made all these crazy mistakes. She didn't know any of these things. And this is, she has financially set herself up for success. I can do the same thing and I could do it in my own
Right.
way, starting from, wherever I'm starting from. Because a lot of times, especially when I was in like my mid to late 20s, the money books I was reading made me feel like I was super behind, that I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was doing, that I would never catch up. And it's like, that's not the case. That is
Yeah.
simply not the case. And so that is why the title is that. So it's just like, this might be why you're broke now, but you're not going to stay broke. When you read the book, it'll help you get to, that wealthy point that you deserve to get to.
Yes. And that's amazing because I know, and I'll just use myself as an example and anybody else who may be listening, right? I know for me, a lot of it is foreign.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
learning some of the things as I'm growing up and following people like you on social
Oh
media,
my God. Thank you.
listening to like YouTube videos. But then when you sit down, it's like, okay, well, what is my overall plan? Like,
Yeah.
am I investing enough in 401k? How do I
Hmm.
know it's going into the right? Because 401k can mind trick.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And the thing is, like, how do I even know what questions to ask? Right. And that's why, so
Right.
I have 3 chapters in the book about investing at different parts of your life and your journey. Because if I'm just starting out and I got a new job, they're like,
Yeah.
okay, get a 401k. I'm like, all right. And then what?
Right.
What
Then
happens next? Like, what do I do? And then, like, when I reach 30 or 40, what do I do with this 401k? What happens if I switch jobs? Does the 401k come with me? Like, people are just like, I've had 3 401ks. I don't know where they are. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at this chapter in the book so we can get our money, because that is your
right.
money. And so that's why I'm really so proud of this book, is the fact that anyone can pick it up no matter where they are in their financial journey. Whether you're a teen, you're in college, you're older, there's something in that book for everyone to help them reach that next step in their financial journey.
Yes, awesome. I'm gonna make sure I get that for my 16, about to be 17-year-old because
Yes, yes, please do.
and we have our washer and dryer on the second floor with us, and I think he feels that we're rich. So he absolutely
Honestly, yeah. It's something about going to the laundry always just threw me. And it's just
yeah,
like, girl, and living in New York is that's crazy, because like the apartments in New York are so small. Sometimes it's literally impossible.
yeah,
It is literally impossible.
right.
So
And I'm like, listen, sir, just because we have the laundromat in our house,
yeah,
like on the second floor across from your room, doesn't mean that you can just wash clothes every day. No, to
I
your
know.
point, you are at the laundry.
That is fact. That is a fact. I also now have a in-unit washer dryer, and I still am just like, I'm gonna let this pile, and I still hate folding
Yeah.
it. Like, I will do laundry, and that laundry will sit in the corner clean for 4 weeks. I'm like, oh, I have to fold this, right? I have to put this away.
I love the analogy though. I think that, it will help, especially like millennials, right? We can relate to it
Yeah.
and it brings it down to a level where we can really understand that. So I love it. So what's one financial tip that you can share or strategy you can share
Mhm.
from your book?
I think what's really important is to go on that money date. That is my favorite thing to talk about. That's my favorite thing. And it's in chapter 1 in the budgeting chapter. And that money date is important and it's not a one and done. That's what's so important. So if you go on a money date, like, okay, I read the book or I'm listening to this, I understand. You gotta do it every month. You gotta do it consistently. And when you're starting out, it's gonna feel a little like, I don't know what I'm doing, or you might want to do it a little more often. And so essentially what a money date is, and you could make it like a date, you could get yourself some food, set up light up some candles, and you're gonna look at every single thing you spent. I know people are like, I don't want to do that, but you're gonna look at every single thing you've spent, every single expense that you have, and all the income you have coming in. And you're gonna create either a chart, you could do it by hand, you could do an automated spreadsheet, whatever it is, but you're going to look at that so you can see, well, how much am I spending on Uber Eats? How much am I spending in Sephora? How much am I spending on food? How much am I saving? Am I saving enough? Do I have an emergency savings? So you have that entire financial plan. And then your next step in that money day is you set up your next month. And that people are like, oh no, but if I did it once, I could just follow. No, because let me tell you, and let me be so real. I spend so much money in the summer. I plan for it now. Like I literally have a savings for the summer because I know that I cannot control myself because I love the summer and my birthday's in the summer. So last summer I shared a money date where I'm like, I spent $19,000 this month. And everyone was like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, let me tell you what I did. I was like, thankfully, a majority of that was for investing. Like, I didn't lose my whole mind. But when I mapped it out, I went to Target like 32 times because
Target tells you what you need when you get there.
Target, I was like, the amount of times I swiped into Target, the amount of times I went to Sephora because I was trying to get the birthday makeup. I was like, girl. And so for September, I put my behind on a low spend month. I was like, we're spending less than $4,000 this month because we need to balance out the chaos that you were doing last month. And without going on that money day in August, I would have been like, oh, it's all good. Like, I'm just going to pay this off. It's fine. Not realizing, like, oh, you set a $300 budget for food and you spend $800 this month, which I did. Outrageous, right? But you need to, and that happens. But the thing that's like, I
Yeah.
go on this money date, I saw the chaos, I fixed it for the next month, but I don't sit down and say, I'm so bad at money. I'm so bad at budgeting. No, I just
Mhm.
had a month where I was off, but next month I'm getting back on track. And then for October, I can change those numbers because now I'm preparing for the holidays. Now I'm saving for Christmas spending. So every single month is important to sit down with your numbers, no matter how much you think you know them, how well you think you know them, because every month's different. Life
Yeah.
happens. Last January, I had to pay for expenses for my pet, and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna have to use money from the emergency savings, right? So every month you want to sit down, go on that money date, look at what you spent, look at all of your expenses. You might want to cut out a subscription, you might want to cut out this, you might want to cut out that, and then prepare for the next month so that you have a plan. When you don't have a plan, that's when it's just like, oh my God, like I'm just spending, and it makes it harder to hit your money goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I'm like taking these mental notes to make sure that I go on those money dates myself and check
Yes.
it all out. And it can maybe feel overwhelming when you see all the
Yeah.
numbers at one time. It's just like, is this really what I spend my money on? Right. So,
Yeah.
well, like, what would you say to someone to not beat themselves up or get down on themselves?
Yeah. So I know that budgeting sometimes, especially if you're using a specific type of budget, it could be like, this feels like I can't do anything. I can't
Yeah.
breathe. I can't move. I'm overwhelmed. So, and I know it's going to sound counterproductive, but then instead of doing the monthly, you do the weekly. And the reason that the weekly, and it'll take you less than 15 minutes, is because it's smaller numbers. And then now you can make a plan for the next week. Right. So it's not gonna like, oh, I messed up. I'm just going to do it next week. Now it's like, okay, if I overspent on Uber Eats this week, next week, I'm going to pack my lunch and take it 4 days this week. And I'll reward myself for those 4 days by getting Uber for lunch that Friday. Right. But now I have a plan for next week and I don't have to worry about next month. I don't have to worry about last week. I'm focusing on what I did well, what mistakes I made, and how I'm fixing them this week, next week. 15 minutes, you're done. And then next Friday, when you're eating your Uber Eats, you could do it again for the next week. And so once you start getting comfortable seeing those numbers, or you're like more comfortable seeing larger numbers, then you could do it monthly. But if you're someone who, like, I can't sit down for an hour and look at my finances, like that is too much for me, do it weekly, do it on your train ride, do it anything where it's just like 15 minutes and I'm done. Right? Don't overwhelm yourself because then you'll never want to do it. And then it's going to like fall by the wayside.
Yeah. I love these tips. So, what resources do you have or can you share with an author, right? So, this is the Authors Impact Hub. So,
Yeah.
we have authors and readers that will listen in. So, what resources do you have that can help authors like with their budgeting?
So, yes, that is a fantastic question. Especially if you're self-publishing, things can really get out of your hands really quickly. Because I last 2 years ago when the book came out, I wanted to do a book launch party and I wanted to do a book tour. Pricey, 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 right? And so if you want to do either or, you're thinking of doing a variation and you're in the middle of either writing or you're like getting ready to publish or pre-launch, I suggest opening a high yield savings fund for your sinking fund for your book. And that could be whatever your budget, like you're like, okay, I'm going to put $5,000 into marketing this book, or I'm going to put $5,000 into PR, whatever it is. But it's like, okay, today is January 14th, and I am going to spend 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 14 weeks saving for this book. And you work backwards. So if you're saving 5,000, what is 5,000 divided by those 12 weeks? Or what is 5,000 divided by those 20 weeks? And you want to be really practical with yourself. And it's going to take some ingenuity, right? Because things are so expensive right now. It's going to take some ingenuity. Pinterest is your best friend. Pinterest definitely helped with the book launch party, keeping the cost down. Cause I was like, oh, we can like do this, we could do that. We don't have to get this here, like all these different ideas. But I had a very strict budget and a sinking fund where I was like, once this is zero, we're
That's
done, right? Because I don't want to go into debt. This is a work of art. I put so much passion into this and I want, the joy to be around it. I don't want to be like next week, like, oh
it.
my God, now I
Yeah.
gotta start paying my credit card for this. Like, you don't want that. You really want to lean into the experience, all the positive experiences of the book. So start a sinking fund, set a budget, and work backwards and decide if you're gonna do weekly contributions, monthly, bi-weekly, day. Some people like daily because it's really
Okay.
small increments. So I know I was talking about saving $1,000 for summer because, like I said, I'm a summer person, and it came out to being $9 a day. So it's like if I want to give up my coffee or whatever until summer, then I'm going to put that $9 into that sinking fund and I'll have $1,000 to go to brunch and do that. So pick the number you want, your end goal, decide how much time you have, and then divide it into something that is manageable for you and make it automated because that's easy. If it's automatically coming out of my account and going into the sinking fund, I don't even got to think about it. So that is definitely the best tip for any authors because it can get expensive real fast.
Yes, listen, I'm like running after we get off of here to look up sinking funds, right? To see if my bank offers that. Cause I know it's important, especially when you're ready to like go to the next level in your entrepreneur journey as an author. So I appreciate you taking this time out and sharing these tips.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is such a great conversation.
Yes, I appreciate this. Listen, I don't think it will be the last time. I could tell you have a lot of gems, but I love that it sounds like you also give yourself grace, right? And I think that's so important because I know that I've thrown in the towel sometimes when it comes to the finances, just like this is overwhelming.
Yeah. And honestly, I was just talking about like some of the people are like never give up, never give up. I'm not someone who ever says push to give up, but I'm very much take a break. Take a break. It doesn't mean you're quitting. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you are
Right.
resting. You are reinvigorating yourself so you can come back even stronger. So when I need a break, I take a break. And
Yeah.
that's for everything. Like on this past Sunday, I accidentally, but it was worth it, took a 3 hour nap. I woke up, I was like, you know what? I feel so much better. I am ready to tackle like whatever I have to do today, but I needed that nap. And so it is okay if you're in the writing process and you need to take a break, even though I know like editors and publishers can be on your neck. It is okay to take your break, reward yourself as you go, because when you burn out, then it's a full stop, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want a full stop. We want to take those breaks when we need them and keep going in a best way. That's like the healthiest way for us too.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, what's next for you? And how can we connect with you on social media to keep up with the amazing things you have going on?
I love that question. So I am millennial in debt on all platforms that exist at this point because who knows what's going to happen.
Oh
But you
no.
can find me millennial in debt on Instagram, TikTok, on Threads. And what is next for me? I think just really building out more financial spaces for people to feel comfortable, more speaking engagements, webinars, and just making sure that people have access to resources when they need them no matter what their background. So that is my main goal for 2025. No exclusionary things. We want to make sure everyone feels welcome and comfortable learning about money.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I always end the show with one last question,
Yeah.
and that is, so what impact do you want your journey and your brand to leave on the world?
What a beautiful question. I think what would make me happy if millennial debt's impact was to impact generations beyond just what's out now, right? Because everything is focused on my literal name is Millennial in Debt, but millennials, Gen Z, but I want Millennial in Debt's impact to go beyond. I want it to be in classrooms. I want curriculum development. And so it's just like when I'm gone, when my children are gone, when their children are gone, people are still learning and have access, especially in underfunded schools, which is where I spent the bulk of my time really learning and having equal opportunities and equal access so that when they leave school, they are able to just dive in and, open that Roth IRA, open that high yield savings. So I definitely want more political change and curriculum changes in the schools.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we will make sure that we stay connected with
Yeah.
you, make these amazing changes. And I know when I get ready to open my account, I'm going to send you a thread like, hey, I did it
Yeah,
today.
please do. I'll be so excited and proud. Like I'm already excited for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again. And listeners, as always, when you listen, leave us a comment, share it with somebody who's like trying to get their finances together in 2025. All the
Yes.
amazing tips that were dropped this evening. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.